But now we know the counterintelligence program and all of that, and J. and all of that. Now we know who put the drugs in the community. But then nobody knew. It was just everywhere. And hip-hop was an escape.
Hip-hop, rap, and R&B would not be where it is today without gang culture. But before we get into that, we need to go back. Modern day gang culture and the blueprint for gangs started in LA.
Los Angeles.
So where did the first black gangs appear? Some of which then continued and lived on for 20 more years, like the infamous Spook Hunters.
We used to get attacked by white boys, namely a group called Spook Hunters.
Yeah, they had a gang called the Spook Hunters. Yeah. We shut them down. They had a black man hanging on the back of their jacket with a rope.
Spook Hunters was an umbrella term. That was a term like, you know, black people are spooks or whatever, and we're white boys, and we're going to catch them.
Once I learned about these white gangs,
the whites were predominant in the area, so we banded together at Slauson Park.
I learned about the response to these white gangs. A gang called the Slausons, a gang called the Farmers, the Businessmen, a gang called the Gladiators. These were all black gangs. Then I learned about these famous gang members back then.
I started to hear about Bird and about Chinaman. And these are Slausons, and it dawned on me, and me and my buddies on the block, we're in the Slauson area, so it's starting at the end of grammar school. We said, well, we're going to be Slausons.
The Slauson name is famous from Bunchy Carter, who was the one who founded the LA chapter of the Black Panther Party.
If it wasn't for Slauson, you could put this on national TV and go ask somebody. If it wasn't for Slauson back in them days. Okay, now your question is this. What are the origins? Okay, now, the first guy, Frank Johnson from the Pueblo Players came. He was the first black person to move on 62nd Street, just before coming west, just before you get to the park. Because 62nd runs out right in front of Slauson Park. And he's a Pueblo Player. He was the first black kid. Then there's a homeboy named Ted Coleman. Ted Coleman told me personally that he went to Edison in 1946. He said one day some white boys were trying to jump on him. He was running. They were chasing him. And the coach was going down the street, and he picked Ted Coleman up. And I think that was on a Friday after school. You know, everything usually happened after school on a Friday. Okay, and he dropped Ted Coleman off. He said, but that Monday when they came to school, Ted Coleman said that the coach put him on the track team. Okay, now he was in the neighborhood in 1946. He showed me some tattoos on his arms that a white boy named Dutch and some other white boys put on it. See, on my cousin Thad Smith that used to live on 75th that I mentioned earlier when I was talking about Bobby Newman, he said that when, that it was white boys at Slauson Park. Okay, now that's before I went up to the park. I didn't go up to the park until 54. Okay, and Ted Coleman told me the white boys did them tattoos that he had on him. And white boys that was at Slauson Park, they were off of Slauson Park and they were white boys. Okay, now the dudes that came up there and became Slausons, they had names like Humbugs and the Skulls, but they hung at Slauson Park. But they had other little names, but they didn't say Slauson. See, but this is 1940s. Okay, Big John told me he came from Mississippi in 1948, and that Big John's from Big Slausons. His cousin, Thomas Henderson, said he came right after that in 49 to Slauson Park. But see, like the point is, it was guys, they were Slausons, but they wasn't named Slausons yet, not until Jerome. See, when all the big guys were there, and Jerome was a younger guy. Jerome's about 3 years or no more than 4 older than me. Okay, when Jerome them started, they the youngsters, just like when I told you that the old dude, some of the Chinaman was an upstart, and they used to let him do what he wanted to do. Well, when Jerome got out in the streets, well, that's the same thing happened. He was doing things that they weren't doing no more. Okay, so Jerome is the one put the name Slauson on it after the park. Okay, and that's in 52. See, but there was Slauson's own Slauson Park in 48.
Soundview Project. Matter of fact, they had a Soundview and Bronxville were the two most frequented ones over here.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Where everybody came a lot.
Came from everywhere. Eden Wall.
Oh, yeah?
Come from Brooklyn.
Eden Wall.
Yeah? So you saying...
Told me I could never hang there.
Yeah.
So you saying this was the spot, like...
This was the spot.
For the whole Bronx?
This was the spot. People came from all over. Number one, we didn't have that BS and all that fighting and shit.
Right.
Okay. We didn't allow nobody to come in here and disrespect them. We stuck together for that.
During the 30s, the 40s, and 50s, many black people from the South poured into big cities like Chicago. They came for a better life. What they got was hell. Vicious slums where people exploited each other to survive.
The almighty Vice Lord Nation is the second largest and one of the oldest street and prison gangs in Chicago, Illinois.
The Vice Lords began in 1958 when 7 young dudes got out of prison together. 10 years later, there were 10,000 Lords. They became a nation, and the nation's spokesman was Bobby Gore. As a boy, forced out into the ghetto streets, Bobby Gore learned to fight. Bobby was part of that first black generation on the West Side that banded together under names like Comanche, Tomahawk, and Vikings, and later came to be called gangs.
The last legal lynching was in 1948. They didn't come out and bring their kids, have lunch, cut our toes off. They didn't do that in public anymore. But to keep us in control, the police started lynching us. And what they called it was justifiable homicide.
COINTELPRO was an FBI operation established in the 50s by J. Edgar Hoover to target African Americans who were fighting for justice and equality.